On today's Locked On Senators, it's a game day preview. We've got the Sens in Boston to take on the Big Bad Bruins.
And it's been a confusing season for the young German superstar, but is Tim Stützle getting back to his elite level?
We'll discuss all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1005 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains, today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello and let you know that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, and Pilsy, this is going to be a tough game for the Sens tonight. Coming into Boston, where the Bruins have been electric at home, and it's been a team that Ottawa struggled against of late. Boston with 3 straight wins against Ottawa.
Yeah, I mean, this Boston Bruins team is kind of on the opposite end of what the Ottawa Senators are in every statistical category, essentially. Like the Bruins, this is a deep team with elite goaltending. Ross, I was looking through team stats at NHL.com. Usually what I do is I filter 4 categories quickly: penalty kill, power play, goals against, goals for. The Boston Bruins are among the top 10 in the league in not 1, not 2, not 3, but all 4 of those categories. So when you have a team that's clicking like that and has the consistency that the Boston Bruins have, they're going to cause the Ottawa Senators a lot of trouble, especially with the Sens being on the road. Luckily, same time zone. Thank goodness, same time zone. But Brady Tkachuk said it today that the Boston Bruins are a team that the Ottawa Senators hope they can become one day.
And you look at the elite talent. David Pastrnak is top 5 in the National Hockey League in scoring this season. And man, what a player he is. And he leads this team both emotionally and on the score sheet. 41 goals, 96 points on the season for Pasta. That's 5th in goals and 4th in points. The only players with more points than Pasta this season: Connor McDavid, Nikita Kucherov, and Nathan MacKinnon. Heard of them?
Yeah.
Decent company for David Pastrnak. He also destroys the Senators, but we'll save that for our full game day preview a little later on. We know the show is coming out a little bit later. The game is coming up. So if you're catching this after the Sens take on the Boston Bruins, well, first, check us out in the postcast, but also we wanted to make sure that there's a little more juice in the topics today. So one thing that I think has really caught my attention of late is how Tim Stützle is back to dancing the way we've seen him and come to know and love when he has the puck on his stick. He's firing more shots of late. So these things, they aren't showing up necessarily every single game on the score sheet. The Senators have obviously struggled. Stützle, 64 points in 66 games. Now, among players under 23, that's still elite. But when he set the bar as high as he did last year with 90 points, it now kind of seems like, oh, is this a step backwards for Tim Stützle? How would you respond to somebody saying that, whether they're watching all the Sens games or just looking at the fact he has 1 power play goal? He went a long stretch in the middle of November. I think it was 17 games where he had 1 goal overall. Like, is this a step back for Tim Stützle, or is this just the natural progression of a player going through growing pains?
I think it's not too crazy of a statement, Ross, to say it is a bit of a step back for Tim Stützle. Now, his playmaking ability is still there. He's racking up the assist. You see it night in and night out. There's usually 1 or 2 dynamic plays that he has. So it's not like he's slowed down from that standpoint. But you have to take a look at the way his shooting is this season compared to most seasons. Like, he doesn't have that same confidence that he had when he scored 39 goals. I mean, heck, even he had 22 goals in the 21-22 season. He's only at 17 right now. It's not that crazy to think that it could be tough for him to score 5 more goals with the pace that he has. You look at his shooting percentage throughout his career, Ross. In his rookie year, 53 games played, 10.8. Next season, 12.5. The season after, so last season, 17.1. Now, obviously, 17.1 shooting percentage, that's tough to maintain. It's not really sustainable. That's fine. So you're thinking, okay, he's probably going to meet somewhere in the middle of 17 and 12. This season, he's at a 9.7 when it comes to shooting percentage. And I think a lot of that is Ross. Like, we talked about it. I think it was the Islanders game. He's not shooting when he has prime shooting opportunities. There's been 2 or 3 goals where he's been on 2-on-1s, and he clearly, like anyone who's watched hockey for their entire life knows, a 2-on-1, the guy with the puck is going to hold it. He's going to wait for the defender to make a move, then he's going to pass it over, and by that point, the goalie and the defender are out of position, and that guy should be able to one-time it in backdoor. Timmy passes it back too often. He makes that extra pass. Now, has it resulted into a goal? Fortunately, yes, it still has worked out. But that's one of those plays where you're like, dude, just bury that. That's a prime scoring opportunity. There's no need to try to force it back over the ice when you're in the best position to score there, or at least create a really good scoring opportunity. So Timmy just has not had that same confidence when shooting the puck this season, and it shows in his statistics, and it shows just the eye test. If you're watching him, there's so many times where you're like, man, with a shot like we saw, he scored 39 goals last year. This kid should be ripping the puck anytime he's in the offensive zone past the blue line, honestly. But that's just the kind of season that he's had. It took him way too long to score his first power play goal of the season, which was becoming one of the most perplexing stats for the Ottawa Senators. Still only at 1 power play goal, and that power play goal was scored up against the San Jose Sharks. So it's not like it was up against like a strong penalty killing team. So I think from a playmaking standpoint, carrying the puck, skating, stick handling, all those kinds of things, Timmy's kind of right where he was last year. But the real difference here is his goal scoring.
Yeah, and even when he's getting great opportunities, you think back to the LA game, Cam Talbot just flashes the leather out of nowhere, takes away a sure goal, but you got to battle back, and that's something I want to see more from Tim Stützle moving forward, is to not get rattled when it doesn't go in for him the first time, because he's so talented. He's going to get his opportunities, and you need him to have the confidence that when he gets in those scoring positions, that he's able to put the puck in the back of the net. I think a big step forward was the goal he scored against Carolina before the House of Cards collapsed. That was a confident move around a defender, and then no hesitation, rips it in the back of the net. Even the goal a couple of games ago, too, against Columbus, where he gets the puck, great feed from JBD, but instead of looking and waiting and trying to make the perfect play, he just goes, I'm going 5-hole. Bang. Yeah. It's in the back of the net. Like, he has the talent. I think that as he produces and kind of matures and gets older and less frustrated with himself, he's going to continue to find ways to elevate other areas of his game. Now, there's still more areas, too, that need to be worked on. Like, I know that there's that reputation among other teams that he goes down easy. They throw out the D word at him. Hate to see that. Dude, he just has trouble staying on his feet. And I think that's, I don't know how you fix it, whether it's a skating coach, because he is a great skater on his edges, but I've even seen it on like zone entries where he gets in the zone by himself, but then when he stops up, he blows a tire. Yeah. And it's like, I just don't understand it. It to me, that's the most confusing part, is that he's such a great skater, but then it feels like he goes down, and I don't think that he's diving. I honestly think that for the most part, some of these, it's no contact. Like, it's just, he's not looking for a call. He just goes down. So I'm hoping that that's something that can improve in his game. Is kind of, I think he should be watching video of guys like McKinnon, guys who are like Rantanen, guys who are leaning on their opposition, or even a less stature type guy like a Sebastian Aho, who's just, they're so strong on their skates. They work down low so well. And because of that, like, you think back the Crosby play on Spezza where he puts him in a blender 6 times behind the net. Like, I don't think Timmy could lean on a guy like that. And
he doesn't have the size to do that.
Or the power. Like, Crosby's not the biggest guy, but it's the power. So I think if we're looking at something to take another step forward for Tim Stützle, it would be adding that power element to his lower body and adding that element of just fearlessness and just like go in there and shoot the puck and be confident and know how good you are, because, hey, it's starting to come around. He's got 30 points in his last 29 games, Pilsy. So this is kind of what can he do to get to the top level? Like, we have set the bar for this guy, highest paid player on the team, all those accolades that he's had as a young player. You keep seeing it every single game. There's like, oh, he joins this elite list of Ottawa Senators for most points in his first 4 seasons, most goals, most assists, most, like, he is at the he has potential to be a top 5 Senator of all time. Definitely. We're just trying to think of what the areas of growth are as well, because in the next segment I want to touch on the things that he has been able to improve throughout this season. But I'm not worried. Are you worried?
No, I'm not worried. This is still, I think it's tough because you see him with the big contract. You've seen him put up big points, so expectations are high. This is still a very young player that has a lot of growing to do. And Ross, I would say there's two main spots where Timmy needs to change or have growth, and that's simplify his game. So we already talked about that. Stop trying to do too many passes, too many dangles, stopping up and using your skates, like thinking one step ahead with his skates. I think sometimes that's what he does, Ross, is he's already thinking about his next move, and then he blows a tire on the first move. Yeah. So simplify your game, and then the emotional maturity, which you touched on. If you're going to be a professional hockey player playing 82 games a year, you're going to have slumps. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to miss key chances. You're going to have goalies, the best goalies in the world, stop you when you should score. It's going to happen. You just need to find a way to be regulated, keep calm, keep cool, collect your emotions, and then move on to the next shift. And I think, again, that's something as a young professional athlete who holds himself in high regard and has high standards for himself, like most Germans do. That's a very German thing, to be very hard on yourself and expect and demand perfection from yourself. But you have to find a balance between the highs and the lows. And I think that's something with time Tim Stützle is going to get better at. And with guys, I think Claude Giroux is the perfect example of a guy that can help him with that sort of thing.
Because Giroux was like that earlier in his career as well.
Exactly.
And I'm glad you brought him up, because Giroux has basically been stapled on his right wing. And I would imagine that's a strategic move from Daniel Alfredsson and Jacques Martin for being like, yo, we want you to be kind of taking Timmy under your wing over the next number of years. And hopefully it's a long time that Giroux's still playing. But they've played at 5-on-5 this year, 574 minutes together. The next forward that Timmy has played with the most, Drake Batherson, at under 400. So he's played almost 200 minutes more with Claude Giroux at 5-on-5 than anyone else on the Senators this year. My final point on things where it's like, okay, look, on the Senators, he's second in shots on goal, but in the league, he's 65th. Evan Bouchard and Vinny Trocheck are the guys next to him in shots on goal. I'd like to see him just rip it and then worry about it, or try to shoot for Pat. If you want to try to get more guys in the mix, like, just shoot and you can create rebounds. So Tim Stützle, lots to like about his game, but other things where we're hoping can improve next season to simplify and allow him to get to the elite level we know he can be. Please let us know in the comments, because I think this is a pretty, not divisive, but an emotional subject, because for the Senators to be a playoff team next year, they need Tim Stützle to be over a point per game. They need that. There's no way around it. Tim Stützle needs to be over a point per game for the Senators to make a run to the playoffs next year. But this year, we're worried about the draft, Billsy, and Ottawa is in all likelihood going to have Boston's first-round pick. We'll let you know how that situation unfolds. We'll get into a game day preview, and we're also going to say something nice about Tim Stützle. That's all coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mary J's. You guys know Mary J's is a locally owned cannabis dispensary in the Ottawa area.
What up, Dashy?
Say what up to Dashy. Started off with Dashy and two of his buddies making a life-changing decision and opening their first store in Kingston. They slept on air mattresses of the floor room to make ends meet. And through hard work and dedication, they now have 4 stores in the Ottawa area. The Ottawa locations are Riverside South, Orleans, Greeley, and Russell. So you can check them out at any of those locations. Mary J's has the best and newest products in the market, and they're adding stuff to the menu every week to keep it fresh. Whether you're a rookie looking to try something out, or you're a grizzled vet and know what you want and you want to be in and out of there quick, they got you. Mary J's offers competitive pricing. In fact, they're going to price match any store in Ottawa. That means you're guaranteed to get the best price around when you go to Mary J's. And They got the best customer service by having the friendliest bud tenders who are always ready to help. Dashy, diehard Sens fan, absolute beauty. If you heard him on our episode where he's a Sens Central citizen, you already know that. Go say what up to Dashy at one of the 4 locations and pick his brain about Tim Stützle's season so far and about all the great products that Mary J's has to offer. Check it out, guys. It's Mary J's Dispensary.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Sleeper. If you're playing daily fantasy, go check out our friends at Sleeper. Regardless of where we are in the standings, still want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper and using Senators to do just that. It's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper's our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick players like Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Claude Giroux, and Jake Sanderson, and whether or not they'll record more or less than their Sleeper projections in goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. So to win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Sens fans. You can win over 100 times you can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks, and win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, Pilsy, game day for the Ottawa Senators in Boston, taking on the Bruins. It's a 7 o'clock puck drop, and whenever the Sens are in Boston, if you want to make yourself feel better about Senators, go back and watch Erik Karlsson's 100-foot saucer pass, 10 feet high. That was in game 3, 10 minutes into the first period. So you're tied at 1 in the series. Yep. The Senators had just come back and won game 2 in overtime. Dion Phaneuf, little bounce in his step with the celly. And then they go into Boston, and that's the first goal that's scored. Could you imagine Pilsy being a Bruins fan? Like, we got this. And then that happening?
Yeah, that was even if
who is this guy?
Even if that was regular season or preseason or an exhibition game, that's an incredible goal. To have that happen on the road in the playoffs, one of the best ever. Wow.
Amazing. Now, let's finish off our conversation on Tim Stützle real quick. Say something nice about him. What is the best part of Tim Stützle's game so far this season?
I would say he's done a really good job of carrying the puck up the ice. We saw him do that a lot in the Carolina game. It seemed like anytime Timmy was on the ice, he was kind of that point guard in basketball type position. The defenseman would just leave it there for him. He scoops it up and he takes it all the way in, and he's able to enter the zone with ease. Now, we know you got to take the good with the bad with Timmy with the zone entries, but I really feel like he's cleaned up a lot of the bad ones. And not only that, it's one thing to be able to get into the zone, Ross, but I feel like earlier in Timmy's career, he could get into the zone, but then he's like, oh, crap, what now? I was only so focused on getting into the zone. I don't know what to do with it now. And then he'll stop up and try to pass it, and it's a turnover, and it goes the other way, and it's all for naught, right? So I think he's done a much better job of not only getting clean zone entries, but then having the mindset of already knowing what he's going to do if and when he's able to break through the blue line there and to set the play up and to keep the offensive zone time going there. So for me, that's the one thing I definitely would say I've noticed has improved with Tim Stützle is his ability to enter the zone and continue to create offense rather than turn it over.
I appreciate that. And for me, it's the fact that it is starting to come together more consistently for Tim Stützle. He's currently riding a season-long 6-game point streak, and he's only gone without a point 4 times in the last 16 games. So for me, that's a sign of consistency and maturity, and the fact that, hey, if it doesn't go in, he'll get the next one. So I want to see more building for Tim Stützle. No spoilers, but that sounds like a Locked On player ready to come up. Billsy, before we get to today's game day preview, and I will walk everyone through what we're cheering for to optimize Boston's first-round pick in this upcoming draft. And it's maybe a matter of moving up 2 or 3 spots, but it could be the difference in getting an elite player, because it does feel, and again, we're in the early days of our research that we're going to start bringing out to you once the season ends, 2024 draft coverage, always right here on Locked On Senators as I almost pull my ring light out behind me. We're all good.
You're just so fired up for the draft. Your screen is literally shaking.
I know. Could you imagine if we actually get a couple stars in this draft? But okay, I'll explain that after the break. But I do want to touch on the GM meetings are going on right now. And Elliot Friedman, Darren Dreger, they're having their little pissing contest of who can tweet out the rule changes first. Always funny to see those two go head to head. What do you feel about this? The 3-on-3 overtime is going to stay the same. The ECHL is up to 7 minutes. I think that's perfect. I just think that there's end-to-end in overtime is so much fun. It feels a shame to always end it a smidge early.
Yeah, Ross, I know this is something you're very passionate about, so I'll mostly hand it over to you. I think the overtime is fine the way it is. I wouldn't say they found the most ideal situation, and I wouldn't say there's a major problem with it. I don't know, an extra 2 minutes, how much of a difference is that going to make? I'm not sure. And I'm sure hockey fans kind of get lost in the passion for the sport, and they're like, why don't you just do 3-on-3 overtime until someone scores? Why even bother having a clock, etc.? But there's broadcasting rules, there's employees that work there's so much more than meets the eye that it's not just as easy to be like, just do what's best for the game, have an endless overtime. Obviously that'd be sweet, but it's a business, and there are a lot of other factors that go into it that unfortunately kind of handcuff the NHL for how they're going to do that.
You can see some other minor rule changes that are going to go through the competition committee and the board of governors, so they aren't happening yet. The one immediate rule change is that players will not be able to have their legs over the bench. You know how you're waiting to come on, or maybe a fourth line's out there and the top guys are like, hey, just so you see, I'm ready to come on the ice. I'm ready for you to come off. I'm ready. I'm ready. Now, here's the reason for it, because Pillsy, I know before the show, we were kind of like, that's kind of a strange rule. Apparently, recently, an official got cut by a skate while he was going by. Makes sense.
Yeah, and especially, Ross, that's a bit like the bench is kind of more linesmen than refs. It's their safe spot, and they need to have the ability to pop up on the bench to avoid pucks. And if you got guys' legs and skates and sticks hanging out, it makes that tough for them to get out of the way. So you can't be complaining at the linesman, get the F out of the way, while also being in their way.
Yeah. Fair enough. So there we go. We'll cover the rule changes if and when they become implemented. But the Board of Governors meetings, GM meetings are going on right now, and I'm curious to see what kind of conversations come out of it, because that's whenever all the GMs get together, there's plenty of, and obviously the trade deadline's passed, but these things can still be worked on. And we saw steady Stevie Staios is adding to Belleville, so we'll see what kind of conversations and what Steve Staios is going to position himself entering the summer.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention, Ross, we talked to Dave Poulin about how Steve Staios kind of emphasized the fact that, sure, maybe not a lot of breakthrough trades or transactions happened for the Sens, but they started the foundation of a lot of conversations. So it's these little meetings and these opportunities. I know Elliot Friedman was saying the GMs went out golfing today. You mix it up on the golf course, continue building on those conversations, and hopefully that blossoms into something bigger for the offseason.
Okay. Game day preview is next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Robinhood. Did you guys know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this. Now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on that 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Check it out today, guys. Robinhood.
right, Pillsy, game day, 7 o'clock puck drop in Boston. Bruins taking on the Ottawa Senators. Big game for the Bruins, trying to stay in a race here with the Florida Panthers. Boston currently first place in the Atlantic Division, 1 point up on Florida. However, Florida does have a game in hand. So we'll get to the game day preview, our locked on player, lookout player. But for Sens fans, you're cheering for Florida to win the division. Here's why. When it comes to the NHL draft, and the Senators, in all likelihood, so in the DeBrincat trade, they get whichever first-round pick is lower between the Bruins and the Red Wings. I think we can all safely assume it will be the Bruins' first-round pick, despite a miracle. The Detroit Red Wings would have to make it to the Eastern Conference Final as long as they don't finish ahead of Boston in the standings, which is mathematically improbable. And you look at what Boston can do here. If Boston makes it to the conference final, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, that pick will be in the bottom 4. The Stanley Cup champion always drafts 32nd. The loser in the Stanley Cup final drafts 31st, and the 2 conference losers draft the next 2 picks, 29th and 30th. However, this is where it gets interesting because all of those things will be decided in the playoffs. But Pillsy, after that, I think this is a lesser known fact that it's all 4 of the division winners that then draft the next 4, the bottom 4 after that. So get your Kachuk jerseys on and maybe tape an M to the for the next couple of weeks, because as Sens fans, we're rooting for Florida to win the Atlantic Division.
Well, and Ross, let's not forget, if the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup this year, that trade from the Tarasenko deal turns from a 4th to a 3rd.
I'm glad you brought that up, because in a perfect world, Florida would win the division but lose in the first 2 rounds. Otherwise, they would already be one of those bottom 4 teams drafting, which would move Boston back a spot or 2.
I'm going to forget all of this. This is too much math for my simple brain.
Let the chips fall where they may. I can hear everybody yelling at me. So let's just hope. And again, for the Senators, they're going to draft in that probably 6 to 9 range. And that's just how it's going to be.
Whoa.
What? You want to draft second? I know.
Yeah, come on.
But that's lottery. That we just have to let the lottery do what it will. The Senators right now have played 2 less games than Arizona. Like, the teams to watch are Montreal, Arizona, and Columbus. Mm-hmm. That's it. The bottom 3, no chance. It's not even worth it. Anaheim's lost 6 in a row. They were inching closer to that trio that I just discussed, that quadrant, Montreal, whatever. And now they're just awful. Minus 77 goal differential. So Anaheim is not a threat to Ottawa. They will be the bottom 3 teams. And look, this is just where we're at right now. I know I hate it. We're not doing a Tankathon spin. Maybe Pillsy will. Tonight is the 199th postcast, Pillsy, all time.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So we're still waiting our first playoff postcast for Ottawa. And we did get a correction. Belleville did play a home playoff game last year, Pillsy.
Okay, I thought they did.
But they were facing elimination when they had their first home playoff game, and they were the higher seed. That's where we were like, this is absurd.
Yes, yep, that's what it was. Because it was it came back to me after we did the episode. I was still a little
good timing, Pills.
Yeah, well, I was a little fuzzy from the night before. You can appreciate that. It was a best of 5 series, and the Rochester Americans won the
best
first
of 3. Close. The best of 3, but because Belleville was the higher seed, they got 2 and 3 at home. Less travel. I get it from that standpoint.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
It's ridiculous. You're a little fuzzy. A little fuzzy.
All right.
Senators come into this game after one of their worst periods of the season. Jacques Martin re-insinuating this morning that through the first 40 minutes, the team played well. And I would agree with that assessment. They were tied at 2 with 30 seconds left in the second period. And then the wheels fell off. The natural disaster that are the Carolina Hurricanes came through and just whipped Ottawa into shape. So Ottawa's coming in. They should be pissed off. They should be prickly after allowing 5 unanswered goals. And they're in Boston right now, and they're alternating home and road games over the next little while. So we'll see how that affects the Senators. Senators come in 28-34 and 4, 9th in the wild card race, which is more like a turtle race because nobody wants it. Every team who's in the mix is just awful right now. It's crazy to see. Makes you wish you were part of the race. But here's how the Senators line up tonight in Boston against a Bruins team that has more overtime losses then regulation losses. Yeah, you heard that right.
Crazy.
40, 14, and 15. No changes to the lineup than we saw against Carolina, except in goal. Up front, Shane Pinto between Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson. Tim Stützle centering Mathieu Joseph and Claude Giroux. Zach Ostapchuk is between Ridley Gregg and Dominic Kubalik. And Mark Kastlik between Boris Kachuk and Parker Kelly. On the back end, Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub. Thomas Chabot with Eric Brandstrom. Jacob Chychrun with Jacob Bernard Docker. And Travis Hamonic was activated from injured reserve. However, he is out of the lineup. Eunice Korpisalo starts in goal. He's 2-2-1 in his last 5 games, still with a .900 save percentage. Pillsy, your locked on player to watch.
My locked on player to watch is going to be number 72, Thomas Chabot. I think, at least for me, Ross, it was kind of a surprise move there. It was like the WWE wrestler intro where the fight's already happening and then a guy just comes on stage and you're like, whoa, I didn't know he was showing up. When Tom Chabot showed up instead of Hamonic, I was surprised. I didn't think he was that close to coming back. We didn't really get any kind of clarity on what his injury was or how long he's going to be out for. So that kind of surprised me to see him on the ice, but it didn't seem like he had that much rust on him as he scored a beauty goal from a bad angle, just top cheese against Carolina. Hit a goal and an assist that game. And it's really nice having Thomas Chabot back, Ross, because that puts Jacob Chychrun down on the bottom pair, which I think is better overall for this team. So number 72, my locked on player.
Yeah, and I mean, he's pulling away for me in the Thomas Chabot versus Jacob Chychrun discussion. And look, I don't need to get into the Chychrun stat I tweeted out last night that Zaitsev has more points than him in the last 31 games. I don't need to
Which is crazy because that was like the platform we were standing on, Ross, it's the same money in and out, except you get Chychrun and you get him for an extra year. How great is that?
They gave up a second and a fourth to get out of Zaitsev's contract and then gave up a first and 2 seconds to get Jacob Chychrun, 12th overall included in that. So anyways, you had Jacob Chychrun as 20 goals this season and it looked so good 10 games in. I think he had 6 goals.
He had 2 goals in his first game or the home opener.
Home opener. Yeah.
Crazy.
My locked on player to watch tonight is Claude Giroux. We just talked about Tim Stützle, but I think Claude Giroux just is every bit important to the Senators, and he had been struggling offensively. There's no doubt about that. Even defensively, I don't know if he's dealing with something in terms of injuries or whatnot, but there was a stretch there ending with the San Jose game where he had 1 assist, 1 assist in 7 games and was -8. But since then, he's got points in 3 of his last 4. So I'm hoping Claude Giroux can step up and be a leader in terms of the offensive impact because you're going up against a veteran team in Boston. And I'm sure, let's find out actually, Claude Giroux career against Boston after spending so much time in Philly. Boston, 55 games, only 38 points. So definitely not his best team that he plays against. Only 12 goals in 55 games in his career against the Bruins. But I'll be locked on to Claude Giroux for tonight's game. Now let's take a look at those big bad Bruins. Pavel Zacha is their number 1 center with Danton Heinen at left wing. Pause. This is the top team in the Eastern Conference right now. That's how much depth they have and how great their goaltending's been. David Pastrnak at right wing helps that as well. We already talked about his stats. 4th in the league in scoring. Second line is Charlie Coyle between Brad Marchand and Jake DeBrusk. You've got Connor Geekie at center. No, Morgan Geekie, the older brother. Morgan Geekie at center with Jacob Lauko and Trent Frederick. And the 4th line, Jesper Bachvist with Beecher and Brazo on the wings. On defense, it's Matt Grzelcyk with Charlie McAvoy. You've got Lindholm and Carlo, and then Parker Wotherspoon and Kevin Shattenkirk. Linus Ullmark will start in goal for the Boston Bruins. He's already beaten Ottawa once this season. That game was an overtime win. 3-2 was the final score for the Bruins, who have won 3 in a row against Ottawa. Who are you looking out for tonight, Bills?
Ross, I'm going to be looking out for number 13, Charlie Coyle, Massachusetts native. So he must have been stoked when he landed in Boston a couple seasons ago. He is doing a really great job. I think a lot of people thought, okay, this Bruins team, they're going to have to definitely work on their depth up the middle with departing players. And Charlie Coyle, I think not everyone thought he was up for the task, but he's had a really good season this year, especially in 69 games, 23 goals, 31 assists for 54 points. That's only 2 points off his career high of 56 back when he was in Minnesota. And Ross, I got some bad news for you. In Charlie Coyle's career, he has played 25 games up against the Ottawa Senators. Guess how many goals?
13?
0.
Oh, interesting.
No goals. It's the only team in the entire National Hockey League, other than the Wild, I should say, but he played on the Wild most of his career. Only 9 games there. In 25 games, Charlie Coyle has 0 goals and 16 assists. So you know he's going to score a goal up against Ottawa probably sooner rather than later. So I honestly, he'll probably get a hat trick tonight. So,
well, I mean, it's more likely that David Pastrnak gets a hat trick tonight because in his career against Ottawa, he's got 34 points in 26 games. Pastrnak always lights up the Ottawa Senators, but my lookout player is going to be Linus Ullmark because look, trade distractions, all that I understand, and it affects players. There's no doubt. And it affected Linus Ullmark going into the trade deadline. He went a ridiculous 6 straight games without a win. And that's we're talking about Boston. He was, get this, 0-1-5. 5 overtime losses, 1 regulation loss during a 6-game stretch before the trade deadline. But since knowing that he's going to play the rest of the year in Boston, the reigning Vezina winner is 2-0 with a .966 save percentage in those 2 games, allowing only 1 goal against on 39 shots against Pittsburgh and 1 goal on 19 shots against Montreal. So Linus Ullmark is back, feeling good, I'm sure, and he is my lookout player to watch. Pilsy, it's going to be a fun game tonight, though. We always love having everybody in the chat after the game on the postcast. You got a key to victory for us tonight for Ottawa?
Just try your best out there. I don't think that there's no statistical category. There's no advantage the Sens have on this team. So just go out there, have some fun, and try hard.
FanDuel has Ottawa at plus 185 tonight. Now, I'll end this off with a question, and you'll get your final thoughts afterwards. Columbus.
Wasn't that my final thought?
Well, Columbus is playing Detroit tonight.
Okay.
Columbus is playing Detroit. Do you care more? Actually, no, we're cheering for Columbus big time. Like, never mind.
Big time.
That's the game of the night. Columbus over Detroit. What else do we have here? Should I wait until 10 games left till I start doing the tank watch? Because it hurts me every time I tweet it out.
No, it's tank watch season, Ross.
Is it? So I should be like, hey, here's who we're cheering for tonight. The tank watch cheering guide.
Yes. Yeah.
Tonight we're cheering for Columbus. We're cheering for Edmonton. Although again, I want to finish ahead of Montreal. And the Phoenix Coyotes are off tonight. Arizona. Okay. Any final thoughts on tonight's show, Pilsy? Who was your player to watch when I said your favorite Sens player that also played for Boston?
Ooh, I mean, Chara. That's the one you used there, so I'll try not to do that one.
Some notable names. Sean McEachran was a good one I saw.
Yep.
Joe Corvo finished career. Wade Redden played a little bit.
Yeah, Wade Redden in Boston is a funny one, that's for sure. Yeah, I know it's the corny answer or the obvious answer, not corny, but it's Chara.
Yeah, it is. Chris Kelly, another good answer too.
Yep, I thought about Kelly, now assistant coach there. Final thoughts for me, Ross, is I think I just need to come to terms that I will never be able to properly remember what happened to Belleville in that playoff series. I thought I had it, and I don't have it. So you know what? That's just it's deleted from my brain. I'm never going to remember that. And you know what? Maybe that's a good thing. I don't want to remember that.
No, let's get new playoff memories. And again, exactly. Laval is the team that Belleville can really kind of put a dent in. They've got 4 out of their next 5 games against Laval. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw, Montreal just reassigned their 5th overall pick from last year, David Reinbacher, to Laval. So give him a rude welcome to the AHL will be huge. This is where I wish we had Tyler Boucher in the lineup, but he's injured, so won't be in the lineup.
And Ross, Laval better look out because Boko Imama was teaching the boys how to fight at practice today. We got some hilarious pictures from Igor, who instead of trying to fight, just thought it's best for his physical health to just turtle and try to protect himself. So that was an all-time photo shoot from the Belleville Senators.
All time, Billsy, as we hope the Belleville Sens can make a push and get some wins in the Calder Cup playoff. That's all in the future here, Locked On Senators. In the immediate future, more to come tomorrow. We'll break down this game. We'll look ahead. It's a busy week, 4 games for the Ottawa Senators this week, but right in front of us, the big bad Boston Bruins. So that's all for today from us. Let us know in the comments, though, about our Tim Stützle conversation. I am very curious to hear everybody's takes on that. For today, we say goodbye. Thanks so much for listening. Pilsy's got you covered in the postcast tonight. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.